You know what free is, nigga? What's free? Free is when nobody else can tell us what to be. Free is when the TV ain't controlling what we see. Told my niggas I need you. Through all the fame, you know I stay true. Pray my niggas stay free. Made a few mistakes, but this ain't
Hi
where
to
I
all
wanna
my
be.
adoring
Performed by 12,
fans.
put a 12 on my feet.
I'm
Told my
here.
niggas I
How are you
need
going to
you.
introduce yourself from now on? This is just what you do.
Yeah, I'm thanking them for being my adoring fans.
You're thanking them for being your adoring fans. Like, it's
Yes,
never a
yes.
question of like whether or not they're your adoring fans. You don't want to introduce
I
yourself.
don't
It
know what
just
that means, whether or not.
you don't know what that means, whether or not. We just assume their adoration, right? Like, this is just the assumption. This is where we
I
begin.
mean, it's me.
All right, I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna give you that. So what does that mean? Like, do I get to introduce this? Like, can we do this? Like, is this a thing I can do? Or
I mean, that's what you're here for, to introduce me. Go ahead.
oh, to introduce you.
Mm.
All right, well, forgive me. So let me just jump into those introductions. So this is, if everybody here knows what this is by now, but we are on OS29. So this Pt.II Open Seminar Series. We're on seminar number 29 today. Same thing we do every time. Same thing, same time, same place. IGTV, 7 p.m. That's UK time. 2 p.m. US time. Obviously, we have to say this now. This is really, really important. But 2 p.m. US time, 7 p.m. UK time, same place. IGTV. Well, for this week, but we'll get to that in a second. With your boy over here, Pt.II, bringing you that education for a new generation. You know, the type of education you usually have to pay through the nose for and like dry old theory across the old white men. But, you know, we bring it to you that new way, break it down that way only we know how. It's that expertise, fam. You know what I'm saying? We bring that philosophical expertise. So, your boy over here.
Stop talking
Pt.II,
about yourself. That's not why people are here.
PhD, director, lead tutor, TBT. Where do we go with this? Philosopher extraordinaire. I'm just saying, you know, all of these things, this is just who I be, man. And then of course, Tanzine, dictator to be, PhD to be, dictator of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying dictator of the world to be, or are we assigning you with that title already?
I think it's fair to just like admit that, you know, it's already happening.
It's just the case. Like, we just have to accept this as like the condition. Okay, so Tanzine, obviously dictator of the world, all bow and hail to the dictator.
Please enjoy.
So look. So
Has a nice ring to it.
Isn't it? Like, isn't it kind of like the joy you're taking in this is incredible. All right, so look.
All bow and hail.
You guys bow, yeah, right? You guys already know what this is by now. As I said, it's that education for a new generation. We've been bringing this kind of thing to you for 29 episodes so far. 29 seminars every single Monday, 7 p.m. and 2 p.m. In the US, breaking down complex everyday issues, but like, you know, with that level of philosophical expertise you don't get anywhere else. Because you know what it is? You know what we're doing? Hey, you, great dictator. You know what everybody here is doing right now? You know what's going on?
Admiring me?
I mean, it's kind of like a byproduct of what we're doing. You know what we're doing? No, you don't. We were building together. That's what we're doing. Hashtag building together. We're building together. See? That's what
Is that
building
another way
together
of saying worshiping me?
And I'm proud that you asked me up here.
I think you got a couple of typos on that shirt.
Nope. This was taken verbatim from one of your tweets, therefore it's correct. The words need to change because you said so, sir.
But yeah, now we can call building together like sideline the adoration of the great dictator Tanzine. That's cool. We can work with that. That's not necessarily a problem. I could do that, right? But okay.
I'm glad you're finally realizing that it's
We are nevertheless building together, and building together means building together with Building Online, and Building Online is everywhere. You know what Building Online is? Building Online has the website, thebuildingtutors.com. Building Online is on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube and you type in the Building Tutors and you search us up, and then you subscribe, you know, watch 1-2 videos where you can find these seminars and find some of our mixes, find a whole bunch of other content on YouTube. Building Online means building on Spotify, where you can find TBT Sounds. All of our mixes are on TBT Sounds. You can find all of that stuff on Spotify, as well as all of the seminars. They're all uploaded to Spotify podcast there, so you guys can go back and listen to all of these, like, you know, gems we drop in left, right, and center. Pick up 1-2 of these lessons. I'm just saying. That's all available on Spotify too, so you can go and subscribe there. And then, of course, Building Online means building on Quora, as well as building on Instagram and Facebook and God as well. So subscribe, fam, sign up, like, tell people, let people know, you know what I'm saying? Inform the world, because the great dictator obviously requires the adoration of her millions and millions of fans.
Exactly.
Right?
Join the movement.
Yes, hello. I love you, and I worship you as the one true white lord.
Worship.
Join the movement. Worship the great dictator. Like, this is what it's really about. Like, the entire time, these 29 seminars have really just been a front for like the great dictator. Yo, what's up, fam?
Well, remember, I'm benevolent.
Sure.
Great benevolent dictator.
Sure. Like, I feel like it kind of like undermines the benevolence when you have to forcibly remind everybody that you're benevolent, but I'm with you.
You'll see.
I take it.
You have to trust me.
I see, but again, I feel like that's what Trump said. And then, like, it didn't really go too well.
Oh, no, definitely not. Not the same as Trump.
I'm not saying you're the same, but I'm just like, you know.
You put me in the same category.
I mean, you're the one, and there it is. And there it is. As
Sorry.
if Trumpian universe.
Sorry. I'm back.
Why to make the point on my behalf? Look, I didn't even do nothing. Look, I didn't even need to do. That's the universe telling you something. That's not me. How dare you compare me to? Oh no! Oh whoops! I've lost my camera. I'm just saying. You remember that? What was that moment? What was it? My man was like, my luggage. Remember that?
In order for our country to be great again, every aspect has to be great, including our inner cities.
And we just saw Mr. Trump here. I asked him, how did it go? And he said, great. And he said he learned a lot of things. What do you think he took away from today?
My luggage. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh, Ben Carson. Oh,
Yeah, the Ben Carson
idiot.
moment. That infamous Ben. You remember that? My luggage mid-interview. Yo, that was amazing. I love that, man. That was honestly one of the greatest moments I've ever seen. Like, for all the bushes.
Except I'm not quite that stupid, so this is not the same.
No, but he is, and it's entertaining, man. He clearly is, and he operates on your brain. It's worrying.
Oh yeah,
Like,
scary.
terrifying, but I love it. All right, so look, in any case, the point is, we are here for a reason. We are here for another open seminar series, another open seminar episode. 29, the 29th one. We've been here for 29 weeks. This has been a minute, but we ain't going nowhere. Not exactly. In any case, we'll get to this. But we are here for another curriculum episode, right? So it's curriculum lessons. We do a curriculum lesson once a month. Every single month, we kick a really, really kind of like heavy, hardcore philosophical issue. There was an issue that we had in the poll today. This is not subliminal. No one's paying us. Nobody is like, this isn't. But if they wanted to, sponsors could be here, and here. I'm just saying.
On your cup.
Or on my. Or I mean, fam, you could wear something like Fashion Over hits up. I'm just saying.
Oh God, we should just talk about this. Both of us are wearing Fashion Nova.
Okay, I don't know if that's the case.
All right, today we're joined by panel regular and stylist to the stars, Angelo Dolphin Tuna.
Yes. And please check out my new book, Work Bitch, How I Overcame Prostate Cancer.
We love that.
You are wearing Fashion Nova.
Okay, I don't know that's the case.
What are you talking about?
I don't know that that's the case. I'm not running with you on this one.
Okay, well, I know that we're both wearing Fashion Nova shoes.
Oh, the hoodies? I'll give you the hoodie.
That's what I'm talking about. And it's really sad because my entire wardrobe, almost everything is now Fashion Nova.
Yeah, this was not supposed to be an ad for fashion. This was not.
This is not so much an ad as much as it is a confession that I have a problem.
Yeah, you definitely have. So, like, yeah, one, Fashion Over, hit us up, because clearly you have, like, a victim here. And two, unless anybody wants some hours in, like, we might need 1-2 addiction helplines, you know what I'm saying? It's up, 1-800 Fashion Over.
I let my look do the talking.
My body is my canvas, and my clothes is my paint.
When it comes to fashion, there's no risk you won't take. Well, congrats on being hot, but this ain't for you. Introducing Fashion Coward, the only store for people who hate shopping and feel lost and scared, with clothes that suggest the general idea of a person. So many shirts are almost normal, but then they go like this.
Fashion addict. But yeah, so in any case, point is, it's another curriculum lesson, right? So we're here to kind of kick a really much more complicated subject. But before we even really get into that, I feel like we've got to kind of like inform peoples of 1-2 things, because we're changing stuff. The great dictator has decreed. Listen, I want everybody to know that insofar as the great dictator is the great dictator, I don't really make choices out here. So if anybody has any complaints, y'all could direct your DMs in that direction. Like, I didn't have nothing to do with this. This is not me.
I'm in
I'm
charge.
not taking responsibility for this. But the great dictator has decreed that she's disappointed with our ongoing technological issues.
Yeah.
And in order to resolve this, she has demanded, I say, that we switch from hence to YouTube Live. Onward, go. We shall march.
Oh my God, can you tell he's a nerd? If for anyone that was confused about this, is there any question anymore?
Have you seen that Alan Partridge and Rob Brydon thing? Men, march the dawn.
Gentlemen to bed. Gentlemen to bed, for we leave it first light. Tomorrow we battle. And we may lose our lives. But remember, death is but a moment. Cowardice is a lifetime of affliction.
Nice.
To bed, for we rise at daybreak.
Very good. Very good. Very impressive.
They always leave at daybreak, don't they? They never leave at, 9:30. Gentlemen to bed, for we leave at 9:30. Ish. Gentlemen to bed, for we rise at... What time's the battle? It's about 12 o'clock.
Yes.
Right, 12 o'clock. That was about on horseback. About 3 hours, something like that. So we leave about 8:30.
8:30 for 9.
Yes. Gentlemen to bed, for we leave at 8:30 for 9, and we rise at just after 7:30. So just after daybreak. Gentlemen to bed, for we leave at 9:30 on the dot. On the dot.
I'm not a nerd like you.
I'm a nerd. But okay, no. That's why I'm the academic. That's why I'm Dr. E, bro. I know what to tell you. The point is, we are marching on to YouTube. We have dominated this market with all of our, obviously wildly popular seminar series with like our billions upon billions of
8 viewers. Yeah.
Things are difficult out here. Coronavirus, okay? People be coughing all over their phones. They don't know what's going on. I can understand. But YouTube, haha, we shall conquer this land. So, on that note, from next week onwards, I don't know, should I say this on your behalf? Or
It's
do you
not
have to...
next week. So, guys.
Oh, this is the thing.
This is the last one, the last open seminar series that we're doing on IG. Starting, not next week, but the week after, we will be on YouTube Live. Next week, we're taking a break. There will be no open seminar series. I know you're all very sad. I'm depriving you of my face. I'm so sorry. But we will be back the next week on YouTube Live, where it'll be episode 30. So we're coming back for episode 30. So in 2 weeks. So make sure everyone goes to our YouTube page. What is the YouTube page?
What do you mean, what is the YouTube page? What do you mean? How do you not know what a YouTube
Tell
page?
them what it is. The dictator cannot concern themselves with such frivolous things. Let's go. Come on.
Type in the Pt.II into YouTube. Search up the Pt.II on YouTube. You'll find our page. We're everywhere. There's mad content on it. So just subscribe when you get there, fam. Click the kind of like the bell thing so you get reminded whenever these seminars get uploaded, and then you'll be reminded whenever we put up other new content, including mixes and everything else that we're doing. This stuff is like, we're busy. So, do your thing. Subscribe.
Subscribe, and then you can watch us live on YouTube starting not next week, the week after.
So there you have it. The great dictator has decreed. Of course, I protested. I tried my best, people. I did try my best. I worked, I struggled, I fought, I protested. But the lady is not for turning. You know what I'm saying? It's like a Bangla Thatcher over here.
I'm most grateful to the Prime Minister. Will she tell us whether she intends to continue her own personal fight against a single currency and an independent central bank when she leaves office?
No, she's going to be the governor.
On the present structure,
Prime Minister.
What a good idea.
There's no. Oh my
Like,
God. Why all the worst ones? Why all the worst ones? Trump, Margaret Thatcher. It's like all the devils. What about Gaddafi?
No. What was the non-devilish dictator?
Gaddafi.
Why are you always with Gaddafi?
Have you seen his outfit?
What
Fabulous.
is your thing?
All the big dictators are gone. Gaddafi, Kim Jong, Hussein, Cheney. You know, I lost these friends. I miss them. You know, Gaddafi, I miss you. Sorry, I mean, Gaddafi, I miss you.
I was saying, how can you not love him with all of his fashion sense? The golden robes, hats.
Gaddafi.
Yes.
I mean, listen, I'm not debating you on this. I feel like somebody should. I feel like there's a large population of Libyans and North Africans, generally speaking, who are getting relatively offended. You know, this is on the internet, and that's global. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
Sorry, guys. He had great fashion.
Oh God. Post-production. See, YouTube. Post-production. But this is why it's so dangerous putting this stuff up live. You see why we do this live? You see the risk we take out here? You see what I'm doing? You see the kind of stuff I'm putting myself out on the line for, right? This is what happening. You're supposed to be engaging with us. You got to save me from the madness. In any case, at some stage, we're going to have to, there'll be a coup and we have to talk with the dictator, but we'll get to that another day. The point is, having said all of that, we did this month's curriculum seminar. We kind of touched on this month's subject last month. In fact, this is the part 2 of last month's part 1, the same subject, right? So last month, we started the question, or we started the subject, I should say, on freedom. I think it was on freedom. The question was, does having more control mean having more freedom, right? And that was the part 1 of this, and we promised that we'd come back in a month and we'd kick off the part 2 of this. This is the part 2 of that conversation. Part 2 this week being the straightforward question was, are we free? Just straightforward was the poll question. I will say this. Last week, we did come to a conclusion, and it may be informative for us in the course of last month, and it may be informative for us to kind of like remind ourselves of that for the course of this conversation. And obviously, because the great dictator hadn't graced us with her presence at that stage, you know what I'm saying? So like, you might just need a little reminder of what we were doing before we were obviously privileged by your presence. See, I'm getting good at this. Last month, the conclusion of that conversation was to say that the more we pursued control, the further we pursued control, the further removed we were from freedom, or from what we thought of as freedom, right? Or the human conception of freedom. We're not going to go into the detail, but that was the conclusion that we came to. The further we pursue the question of control, or the further we pursue control, the further we remove ourselves from our normal conception of freedom, right? But I know that you have strong feelings on the issue, and like, I don't really want to kick it off on my normal stuff, but like, we had a poll, pretty split,
50-50?
Almost exactly.
Okay.
Almost exactly. So we had a poll was pretty split, almost exactly 50-50. So it's like, and then I don't know. Where do you stand? Let's just go with that. Where do you stand on the question?
So I don't know, because the way this question came up for me was that I was teaching my class last week, and we were talking about society and socialization and social interaction, and thinking about that stuff, and thinking about teaching my students about how we're constantly being socialized into a grand narrative, right? Some sort of this grand ideology that we have in society. And we have to take for granted certain assumptions in order to, follow the norms of society, follow the rules of society, and thinking about the institutions that we have in our society, particularly education, but, all of these institutions. Are we really free? And that's the question that I pose to my students. And I don't know. I want to say, on some level, I think no. Like, on a larger level, societally, institutionally, like what does it mean to be free? If we're constantly being socialized and it's funny.
Nothing. I'd like the lecture's happening now. Like, let's do this.
If we're constantly being socialized into accepting norms that we didn't create, that have been created for us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if we're constantly being socialized into an ideological position that we didn't actively choose, then are we free? And I want to say on that level, no, right?
Okay.
And a great example of this, I think, is school. I remember, so last week I was talking to my students and I asked them, what is the purpose of school? Is it to educate you? And we've talked a little bit about this, I think, in the seminars.
Yeah,
what is the purpose of school? Is it actually to educate you, and educate you into what? And the thing is, you have you might learn algebra, science, whatever, English, all these things in school, but you're also learning something else. You're learning, there's a hidden agenda to these institutions like school, where think about what school is like. This is what I ask my students. What does school remind you of? Is your time free when you're in school? And everybody was like, no, because you have a certain time to eat. You're told when to eat. You're told when to go to this class. You're told when to do this. You're told when to do that. And I asked my students, what does this remind you of? And they were like, work. It reminds you of work. When you're at work, your time is not free, right? You have to give 8 hours or maybe more of your day. And you're told what time you can eat, what time you can do what time you can do something else, right? And then I asked them, what else does this remind you of? And immediately they were like, prison. Because in prison, you're also told what you can do when you can eat, when you can sleep, when you can socialize, when you can do whatever. So thinking about it in that way, thinking about institutions, thinking about the way schools function. It seems like school is primarily to create good workers, to create people who know how to follow directions, people who know how to sit and do what they're told and not ask questions. Because what happens when you rebel in school? You get in trouble, right? This is setting up the framework for when you join the workforce, or in some ways, they're planning for you to go to prison. So, I think, so when you look at it that way, I really wonder, how much freedom, are we really free? And I want to say no, because we're constantly being shaped by the forces around us that, again, we didn't choose.
I'm with you. I feel like two things. I feel like one, I can't help but I want to prison Mike you now suddenly. I feel like that, that The Office episode, remember Prison Mike?
Oh God, Prison Mike from The Office.
Hey, that's just the way we talk in the clink. Been a lot of fun talk about prison today, but I am here to scare you straight. I am here to scare you straight!
when he's like, you guys think work is like prison? I'm gonna show you what prison is like. And the worst thing about prison was when the Dementors come through.
The worst thing about prison was the Dementors. They were flying all over the place and they were scary, and then they'd come down and they'd suck the soul out of your body and it'd hurt.
Dementors like in Harry Potter?
No, not Harry Potter. There are no movies in prison.
Harry Potter. Harry Potter was the worst thing about prison. Yeah.
I don't know why that was I was listening to you, but at some stage of the course of that conversation, my mind just I don't know what to tell you, but I just
went to Prison Mike. I mean, I forgive it because it's The Office and it's the greatest show ever.
Right? So there you go. So we can permit that. Prison Mike, fam. Prison Mike. But so the interesting thing about what you're saying, at least for me, particularly academically speaking, right, and that's the function of what we're doing here, that is that what you're saying. On the one hand, I kind of agree with you, but on the other hand, what you're saying is reflected in contemporary popular philosophy. Most popular philosophy, most contemporary philosophy will kind of agree with you on this point. They kind of look at the issue of whether or not we have freedom, whether or not it exists, on similar lines to the ones you're describing. I'll say this though, just as an immediate first thought, right? Just as for us to kind of consider it, it's worth taking into consideration the distinction between moral, well, not a distinction, the relationship between our moral responsibility and our sense of freedom, right? I feel like intuitively, we tend to kind of like impose a sense of moral responsibility on ourselves, never mind anybody else, but on ourselves, like in almost everything we do. Like at least I do, and I'm relatively sure you do. I'm relatively sure most people do walk around thinking of themselves as kind of morally responsible for their own thoughts and their own actions most of the time. Whether or not they say that is a different issue, or whether or not they behave that way is a different issue, but they feel that way internally, right? And what I'm saying is it's really hard to divorce that sense of that conviction of moral responsibility from that. Sorry, it's really hard to kind of line up, I should say, that conviction of moral responsibility with the whole, okay, but my choices and my decisions are being influenced by some external forces and what have you. Most people would tend to feel like, oh, I'm responsible for what I'm doing, right? So, because I'm making a free decision, at least intuitively, like whether or not this is true, intuitively, that's how people would feel. Like if I told people, and you know this, like in your history as a cultist leftist, in that history, you know this, like, you go to people and you try to tell them that they're being brainwashed, for example, by popular media or what have you. It's really hard to convince them of that because they genuinely think that they've come to the conclusions they've come to on their own terms.
But I think part of this is because there's different levels of analysis. And when we live in the world as individuals. Very few people think of the world institutionally or systemically or in a larger scale. Right. And it makes sense because you experience the world as an individual. So you think that, you know, I like orange juice because that's just me. I like it. But how do you know that you like it because it's you? It's also something that you've been given since you were a child, right? Like, I'm just using a stupid example, but it's just like, how do we know that the things that we're choosing and our choices are our own? Are they our own? Like, look, I love Fashion Nova. I'm wearing a Fashion Nova hoodie. My whole closet is filled with Fashion Nova. But is it that I like Fashion Nova or that it's constantly being like, I'm being bombarded with everything from Fashion Nova? How do I know that that's the style of clothing that I like, that I actually like? What do I actually like? Or is that just something that's constructed by the world around me?
I agree. I understand. And this is what I'm saying. I agree with you. And I feel like this is where I'm saying popular, particularly American philosophy, tends to line up with what you're saying. Like the way they describe the issue of freedom is kind of basically the same way that you describe it. So, for example, let me just kick you a little quote. There's a guy called Peter van Inwagen. It's like, you know, a really popular Western philosopher. I don't like the guy, but what have you. The point is he says, I'm quoting him, he says, it's difficult to formulate the problem of free will in a way that will satisfy everybody, right? Because, like, you know, and that's the end of the quote, but the idea is that everybody has these kind of different conceptions of when they're free, how they're free, if they're free, so on and so forth. And it's difficult to come up with a description of free will or freedom that like makes everybody go, no, that's what that is. Like everybody's satisfied with that. Okay, cool. Similarly, there's another guy called Galen Strawson, says something else. He says, quote, but in many human beings, the experience of choice gives rise to a conviction of absolute responsibility that's untouched by philosophical argument, right? So what he's saying is, there's like, so when you're choosing your Fashion Nova, and you're sitting there scrolling through your phone and and you're picking out which hoodie to buy this week, or which top to buy, or which pair of leggings to buy this week, or what have you, or which print on which shirt, or what have you, right? As you're doing that, and you're making your purchase, or you're considering the purchase you want to make, right? You know, or at least you think of yourself in that moment, you think of yourself as responsible for the decisions you're making. You definitely don't think of yourself as like under some kind of power by some other force, and you're not in control of your actions.
Sometimes I do.
Okay, I know sometimes you do.
I am shopping so much on Fashion Nova, it is sick. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, but between that and Sephora, you've got like a whole industry.
Yeah.
No, I know. And this is like a whole conversation we have. I know. But what I'm saying is, so the popular philosophical conception of freedom kind of lines up with what you're saying. And then they say it's because of what you've described, right? So they say this. They say that there's really two opposing positions on the question of whether or not we're free, right? And they say there's only two because both sides agree with one principle. That underlying principle is what they call determinism, right? It's called, in philosophical jargon, it's called determinism. So to quote, explain, it says, briefly, determinism is the view that everything that happens is necessitated by what has already gone before in such a way that nothing can happen otherwise than it does, right? So like, because of cause and effect, everything that's happening now has to happen the way it's happening because of what happened however long ago and what have you. It's like this is all just the effect of a previous cause. So there's not really any kind of, it doesn't permit much room for freedom because everything is just a cause of a preceding effect. You don't control the shit. So they say that everybody tends to agree with that, right? Everybody agrees that there is such a thing as causality and that determines things, hence determinism. But what they also say is, given that everybody agrees with that basic thing, like you were saying that we all agree that there's like, you know, influencing forces on our lives. Cool, because I agree with you on this one. They say that means there's only two positions left. You can either be somebody who says that your freedom is compatible with those forces, so you're a compatibilist, or you can be somebody who says that your freedom is not compatible with those forces, so you're an incompatibilist. Which means either you think you can have freedom and have those forces at the same time, and you've got to figure out how that works. Or you think it's just impossible to bring these two things together, and either there's absolutely no freedom or there's only freedom. And very few people believe that third option, there's only freedom. Like, I'm a nutter. I believe that, but I'm a nutter. But that's why my book is a little different.
There's only freedom?
100%.
How?
1 bazillion%.
But that's the thing, because so this is the problem I have with that argument, because it can lend itself to some very messed up conservative
100%
ways of thinking, right?
100%.
So it's like, let's say somebody, I don't know, somebody robs a bank.
Yep.
But the reason they rob a bank is because, I don't know, their kid needs a surgery and we live in America and we don't have health care here. So,
John Q.
What? John Q. There you go, like the movie. Yeah. Was John Q wrong to do what he did? No, of course not.
100%.
But did he really have a choice in that situation?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes.
But you see what's dangerous about that. I see why you're saying yes. You're saying yes because, yes, he could have said, I'm not going to rob this bank. I'm going to let my kid die. But what kind of choice is that? And the problem with this argument, I feel like, is that, you know, the right wing, conservatives, whatever, you know, the law and order nut job will use that to punish people because they say, no, you had a choice and you did it anyway and you're wrong.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I think I think that's part of what was, to get a little academic, right? In my book, that's part of what Jean-Paul Sartre was worried about with Martin Heidegger, who having this debate, albeit not at the same time, but like this is what came out of their books, right? So for Jean-Paul Sartre, he was worried that Heidegger's point of view, which is the one I'm espousing now, that there is only freedom, that point of view leads to what you're describing, that you could end up then saying, well, if I'm a Nazi, I'm just a Nazi because it was like, you know, I was what have you, and it is what it is, right? And that's terrifying because you need to have some kind of an ethical standard. Like you have to have some kind of an ethical standard in order for this to work. And I agree with that. Like you do have to have some kind of ethical standard in order for this to work. But here's what I think is problematic with that argument, because it undermines your predilection to ethical standards. To put that in like regular terms, what that means is it suggests that you're not automatically ethical, that you would require a standard like imposed upon you in order for you to be ethical, as though your decisions aren't intuitively ethical. Your decisions are intuitively dangerous and you need to be reined in. I don't think that's the case.
How do you get there?
Because Jean-Paul Sartre says, and like as we're saying here, we have to be careful about the kind of argument we're putting forward, because it can be used to say that, well, you know, we don't need ethics, scholars, whatever else. So we have to kind of like rein our argument in a little bit and offer like a safer version of that argument so that we don't risk that, because hey, if we don't do that, people might do this. I don't think that people will necessarily do that. I think that argument is already being made. You're right. The conservative right-wing nutters already make that argument. But I don't think we're making the same argument. And for this simple reason, let me explain this. When they do that, when they go low, fam, I kick you upside the head, blood, and keep moving. What are you talking about when they go low? Why are you down by my feet? I'm going to kick you upside your head real quick. 1, 2, tick. Bounce, fam. Peck no arm. What's up? The point is, sorry, I'm still from South London, fam. I don't know what's out. But the point is...
That was a whole thing that no one in America understood. Continue.
None of y'all. But I swear to God, if you turned up for 5 minutes, you'd be terrified. The point is...
I ain't even going to say. You know what that is? I'll tell you what that is. That's an alien, bruv. Believe it. Must have come from outer space trying to take over the Earth, innit? When I landed in the wrong place, though, you get me? The wrong place. Welcome to London, motherfucker. Welcome to the ends, brother. This is the block, fam. Nobody fucks with the block. You get me? The B-L-O-C-K.
What I'm saying is the reason when they do that, right? And the reason they do that is because there's this fundamental difference between the way the left and the right conceives the law. And it's kind of what you're touching on now, right? So for the right wing, or for what we think of as the right wing, particularly in the United States, they think of the law as a moral barometer. Like they really think of the law as a way of checking the morality of the nation.
Because they accept the assumption that the law is just and fair and correct.
It's working on that assumption, right? And this is why they can kind of cite, well, you know, God and the commandments and a lot of those nutters then go on that wing of things and they're saying that kind of stuff because they genuinely think that the law is a barometer for the morality of the nation. On the left, though, what they've done is separate those two things out because the left is spawned out of leftist thinking is spawned out of atheist thinking, so on and so forth. So they've separated those two things out. What they've said is, no, but the law is just the law. Your morals are another question altogether. I am saying that is the problem. That while I agree with this, like I can understand why the law is the law and your morals are just separate, like are a separate issue altogether. What I'm saying is we can't really speak to that side properly unless we address that gap. Because that side just sees these two things as tied up. We're never really going to have a conversation unless we can address that gap ourselves. And in principle, what they're going to say, and we have to remember this, is that what they're going to say is, okay, but if you're not basing the law on morality, what the hell are you basing it on? And then if we end up saying, I don't know, leftist principles, they're going to say, oh, see, communist dictatorship. And then they'll kind of be right. Like,
I mean,
say cultural Marxism. And yeah, kind of. And then there's no argument left anymore, because then what we'd have to do is we'd effectively be the mask would effectively be taken down for these people, and they'd be like, see, they confessed it. They're all cultural Marxists. It's like, let's take over. And it's not that. It's but because we're terrified of asserting a moral position without necessarily having to kind of link us to God. That's really what it is. That we don't want to say that, no, that you can be free all the time, and that does have something to do with the moral decisions you're making, but that doesn't necessarily make me a Christian right-wing psychopath. It doesn't necessarily determine how I'm going to judge your decisions. So John Q, classic example, it's a good example, and I'm glad you mentioned it, but think about this. The power of the decision he makes throughout the whole, the power of the decision he makes is precisely because he knows that this could go left. It's because he knows that. What he's saying is, like, for lack of a better word, screw the consequences, screw the risks, screw the law, screw the circumstances, screw all of that. This is more important than that. I can't, but I know what this involves, which is why he arms himself the whole way through. I know that I'm going to get in trouble. I know that this is a major issue. I know this is illegal. I know all of that. I know that the negative that can come from the decisions I'm making. But I'm going to bear that burden for the purposes of my son.
Well, it's because he knows he's morally correct. He's right.
I agree with
you. Yeah.
I agree with you, but it's in that respect, it's almost sacrificial. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to bear the burden of the negative that I'm doing in order to help save my son. It's like Jesus, like, you know what I'm saying? But the whole idea of the sacrifice in order to save somebody else, So, but the power of that decision is because he knows, like, the moral weight of the decision he's taking. We take that away and be like, well, no, I don't think he really had a choice. He did the only thing he could do. I think it undermines the kind of the power of the decision he makes. I think he knows he could have done something else, but I did this because he proved something else, man.
Lieutenant Frank Grimes of Chicago Police Department. Are you the man in charge?
That's right.
Well, who am I speaking to?
John Q.
I assume since all the doors are locked, this is a hostage situation. Is that correct? Okay.
I know you do things your own way.
Blood pressure
pressure is dropping fast. He's going into cardiac arrest.
But I don't understand.
Mike's heart is useless. He's going to need a transplant or he's going to die.
What made Mike so sick?
Transplant surgery is very expensive.
We got insurance.
There are no provisions in your policy for a procedure of this magnitude.
All right, you want money? I'll get you your money. We've recently switched carriers.
We only give assistance to patients without coverage. I'm sorry I can't help you.
Have you tried Medicaid?
No, you don't qualify. My son is dying. I'm broke. If I don't qualify, who the hell does?
I've done everything I can do. I'm sorry.
Please.
They are releasing him. Now you need to do something.
I'll take care of it.
Hear me? Do something.
That's why I did this and I had a gun the whole time.
So he had a choice, and he chose to be moral.
Yeah, he chose a path. That's what makes it a higher path, because I know there's another path I could have taken, but I took this one, and damn be the consequences, because this is the higher path.
Mm-hmm.
My set of circumstances at my time in my situation, God knows what else. Maybe in a different time, in a different place, under a different set of circumstances, will come to a different conclusion. But under these circumstances, at my time and my place and what I'm dealing with, this is the higher path. This is the right path, and damn the consequences, fam. If I have to meet God Himself and deal with Him, I deal with it. You see what I'm saying? Because I feel like this is the right thing to do. In that particular case, he's not drawing his morality from God, 100%. No, and he may well have been a Christian. He's not drawing his morality from the law. Definitely not.
Yeah,
and
because we know the law is illegitimate already.
Yeah, and he may well not be drawing his morality from general society, because I feel like the way it was cast, at least in the case of the film, the general population would have disagreed with it, particularly so far as his back. We know what that is in the United States. So it's like, I'm not making this moral decision on the basis of a reflection on the influencing forces of my life. It's precisely down to those influencing forces that I'm making that decision. It's that's freedom. But that's available all the time. That's always there.
Yeah.
No, and I mean it in the respect of, when I say it's always there, I don't mean every single one of your decisions have the same kind of moral weight. What I'm saying is that in every single moment of your life, your decisions can be drawn from a place that defines your whole character. You see, like, no, I'm making this decision because this decision is true to my being right now. The same way John makes that decision because I have to make it and I die on this one. Like, decisions you can die on. Those ones, like, you know what I'm saying? This sums up me as a being. I could die on this one. That's a decision. That's a free decision. And that decision, now I deal with God Himself. I'm gonna die on this decision. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not, listen, I shouldn't be saying this because it's a seminar and we're supposed to be promoting good ideas, but what I'm saying is, if I feel like even if a person was a psychopath, like a left or right wing psychopath, what have you, and they decided that they will make a decision they felt like they could die on, all right, well, one, you might end up getting killed for it, homie, but like, that's, what do you want me to tell you? Like, what do you want me to, what more than that did I want you to do? Like, to reflect on it and genuinely feel like your entire being is calling you, not the radio, not Donald Trump, not Karl Marx, not anybody else. Like, that's not what John Q was doing. He didn't reflect on, I wonder what Marx would have done in this situation.
Right.
It was like, I'm gonna do this. For me, for now, for here. And it wasn't a judgment on anybody else. He even said it in the film. It's not even passing judgment on anyone else. For me, for now, for here, I'm gonna do this. You know what I'm saying?
For some reason, I keep thinking about the right-wing nut jobs in the U.S. who don't want to wear masks because it's infringing on their freedom. Because I think there's some sort of parallel here in a weird way. I mean, I do think a big part of it. So I think a big part of this whole thing that we're seeing is rooted. America is the most selfish place on the planet. And it has the most selfish population on the planet. And I think part of the way freedom is conceived in the United States is that is freedom. The freedom to do whatever you want to do as an individual. The freedom to be as selfish as possible. The freedom to be the biggest a-hole in the world. That is how the average American conceives of freedom. Because let's be real, there's nothing more selfish than a Karen.
We will get together and do a citizen's arrest on every single human being that goes against the freedom of choice, okay? You cannot mandate You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people.
You're not God, and since masks are harmful, where there is risk, there should be choice. You're removing our freedoms and stomping on our constitutional rights by these communist dictatorship orders or laws you want to mandate.
And so, it's true. And this is the land of the Karens.
Fam.
But
All right, fair enough.
So I think that's one thing. But the other side of it is that there's this, I think these people really believe that they are morally, that there's something, the way that John Q knew what he was doing was morally correct. I feel like these people believe that they are morally correct because I actually think that they think that wearing a mask is some sort of tyranny and they're fighting tyranny.
I would make an exception to this.
Yeah.
I don't think they think they're morally correct. I think they think they're morally exceptional.
What do you mean? What's the difference?
I think that if Trump were to say something else, or if the state were to put a gun in their face, I think 95% of them would change their mind real fast.
You think so? I don't think so.
No, 95. I think there's some crazies. I'll give you that.
I don't think you understand how deep the insanity in America is. Particularly with this population in America.
No, I agree with you, but I'm saying I feel like they think they can do what they're doing because they're being reinforced by the state.
I honestly, that might be the case for some, but I honestly think that a lot of these crazy people will do it with a gun in their face, proudly, and think of themselves as American patriots, spreading this virus all over the place.
I don't
have a care in the world because they're being American patriots.
No, I'm with you. You know what I think of? This isn't the same thing, and I maybe shouldn't be casting aspersions here, but take from it what you will. Like my seminar script. But the point is, what I think of is the normal Finkelstein example about the Israeli settlers in Palestine. Free Palestine, by the way. But yeah, so the Israeli settlers in Palestine, and what he was saying is that the large majority of them would leave if they didn't think they had military backing. If you just told them you could stay here if you want, you could stay here and be a settler crazy person if you want and kind of fend off all the Palestinians you like. But if I'm telling you right now, the military is leaving, fam. You're doing this on your own. And 95% of them will bounce.
Yeah, but that's because they're cowards. The thing is...
You think these masked people are like courageous?
No, I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's the thing is, I think that there's a difference between the way that America... It goes back to the founding of this country, to be honest with you. When you grow up in the United States and you're in school and you're learning about America, American history, you learn about, westward expansion, which is settler colonialism, just like Israel is. Right. But the difference is that the settlers that went out into the West and conquered and murdered Native Americans and did all the horrific things that they did. I think that there's this real sense of like rugged individualism. This is like the most American thing, right? Where it's like, we don't need anyone, not the government, not anybody to help us. And they really truly believe that I don't think many of these people want the state to back them even, because they see that in and of itself as like fundamentally like, but if you're on the side of the state, then you've lost your freedom, because their conception of freedom is like the most individualistic thing that you can think of, which means they don't even want a state, some of these people.
I agree with you. I think that there are some amongst that group, there are some who will push it that far and say and have the wherewithal to say those words, right? But even amongst them, I think it's a smaller proportion who really mean it. Like, because I genuinely think that ignorance is a major issue, and I don't know if 95% of them know what living in the Wild Wild West would be like, because that's a real thing. Like, you could do that and take the state away, but that's not a way to live. Like, that's a real issue.
These are people who can't handle wearing a mask.
Right.
Wearing a mask, but you want to live in the Wild Wild West? Okay.
But you want to corral horses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not I don't think they've fully taken this into consideration. It's very much like the left. In this respect, there's a similarity, right? Because where the left says things like, and again, I'm a leftist, but where the left says things like, we need to dismantle the state and we need to get rid of these systems of oppression and we need to kind of take away the influencing factors in mass industry, blah, 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 blah. Cool. I'm not opposed to any of that stuff. Fine, let's go ahead, let's dismantle, do what we need to do. Great. The issue is that one, they don't really want to dismantle everything because, I don't mean get rid of the internet. I still want the internet. And no, I don't mean get rid of trains. I mean, I still want trains. And I don't mean get rid of, no. Can we just keep all the benefits of this capitalism just without the system that produces it? You see what I'm saying? Like when you push a leftist, that's really where it ends up going. And then you're like, okay, so how are you going to recreate those benefits? Or how are you going to convince the majority of the population that is listening to you to be okay with the fact that you might have to lose 1-2 things? Like, this is a genuine fear, right? So this whole anti-green movement is because they're like, they're trying to change our way of life and they're trying to kind of take away our whatever else is, which in a manner of speaking, they are.
Right, but it's because our way of life is horrible.
Destroying life.
Like,
yeah, free Palestine, free the planet. Damn it.
Yeah, really.
But, okay, so what I'm saying is, in every single one of these cases, right? Philosophically, this is interesting because in every single one of these cases, what we're talking about is a certain conception of freedom that may well be dominant in the United States, and it's dominant amongst all the philosophers that I've mentioned so far who I've quoted. But that certain conception of freedom, that dominant conception of freedom is one of what I have called and what other philosophers have called freedom from, right? So I'm free because I'm free from influences, I'm free from coercive forces, I'm free from determining factors, I'm free from, right? So my freedom is determined by what I'm independent from, or by the degree to which I'm independent from a thing, right? There's a quote for this. So it says, among the definitions of the essence of freedom, one has always come to the fore. According to this, freedom primarily refers to autonomy. Freedom is freedom from. So this definition of the essence of freedom as independence, or the absence of dependence, involves the denial of dependence on something else. One speaks, therefore, of the negative concept of freedom, more succinctly of negative freedom, right? So it's a negative thing. The issue is, that's, insofar as it's a negative freedom, it gives us only half the picture, right? Because when you're trying to talk about, okay, so then when we're talking about freedom as a freedom from a thing, so all my freedom exists only insofar as I'm independent from particular determining forces. Well, the first obvious question that has to become, well, what is my relationship to those forces? In order for me to figure out how I can be free from them, or what freedom provides me in order for me to kind of like detach myself from those forces. So when you were saying earlier on, okay, but there's influencing forces in our lives, cultural influencing forces in our lives, fashion over amongst them that determine what we like and what we do and what we have, and we can't get away from those.
Well, I just want to say, it's not even what company you're buying clothing from. It goes even deeper than that, because when I shop online, I feel compelled to do it because there are external forces. Why are we all spending so much goddamn money right now? Right? I really do feel like I have no control over my shopping addiction.
Your
really
Amazon
terrible.
account.
No, but the thing is, I feel like this is a thing in the United States, at least. Like, because everyone I talk to is like, I can't stop shopping, and we're all just
Guys
like,
are insane.
But it's because we're built on capitalism, and everything is buy, consume, and there's
I agree.
You know, and it's like, it's almost like it becomes like this second nature thing. You just do it, and you don't even, you can't stop yourself.
Listen, I will say this. While I was out there, when I was living in New York for that minute, I was very, very conscious of this. Like, it was weird that a day didn't go by when an expenditure didn't have to be made for its own sake. It was like sometimes purchases were made for purchase's sake. It was as if, like, I didn't really do a day today if I ain't spend something on something. I'm like, what the? But you can just sit at home. It was like, no, I need to spend money on something. Why though? Don't.
And the second you leave the house, you've automatically spent money. You're spending money.
That's city taxes, man. It's like getting to the point where we've got to like spend money to breathe the air in the city, man. Yeah. Like, I get it. That's the city tax. But what I'm saying is, so with respect to all of these influencing forces, when you raised it earlier on, and when we started the seminar, the issue is this: is that it's very true. Obviously, you're born into a situation where there are all of these other influencing factors, right? But then at some stage, somebody gives birth to somebody else, right? So like, I'm not applying anything here, but I'm just saying at some stage, somebody gives birth to somebody, right? So listen, we'll just skip past that. But the point is, that person that you give birth to themselves will say, I was born into a cultural situation that I didn't determine or God knows whatever else. But the parent who conceived and gave birth to that child is an enormous influencing factor on that child's cultural conceptions and life and God knows whatever else, and how they see things, and down to the examples that you were saying about drinking orange juice or God knows whatever else. It's like, even down to what your mother was eating during your pregnancy will determine to some degree what you end up like in the course of your childhood. So of course, I will agree with you that it's the case that everybody's born into an environment in which they didn't have control over the culturally influencing factors. But in the course of their lives, they are exerting an effect on those factors. Like, by virtue of being part of it, you're exerting an effect on it. You're doing things like, okay, maybe not a great thing, maybe not loads of things, maybe not changing the world, but your presence and your decisions are genuinely affecting the environment around you. They're influencing that cultural environment to one degree or another. Like, at some stage there wasn't a Jay-Z, and then there was, and that genuinely changed things. Like, in terms of culture, that changed things. Like, the arrival of a Jay-Z really changed stuff. Like, that made a difference in terms of culture. Like, fam, the arrival of the Black Album, suddenly everybody in the hood's wearing button-ups. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really has that much of an influence. But this is a human being we're talking about. The same thing with Drake or what have you. Like, we're talking about human beings here. That wasn't no shade. I feel like Drake would see, because he's petty. He would take that as shade, that I just threw his name in at the end after Jay-Z there. He would take that as shade. But, like, it's just because I feel like he stole my beard in the first place. So I don't know what to tell you. But the point is, there's an influence that you exert on, like, while you're here, and then definitively on the child that you give birth to.
I feel like leftists would call that agency. You have agency.
You have agency, which is interesting because, again, it's agency. It's the same kind of concept though, because agency here refers to the degree of your autonomy. Like, again, see, it's freedom from. Even when we're talking about your agency and your connectedness to things, we're talking about your disconnectedness to things. There's this kind of like inherent conception of the self as fundamentally disconnected from the environment, which is why politically and colloquially, like in everyday conversation, we can never find a satisfying account of free will or freedom, because our underlying premises, like the underlying things that we assume, is that we are somehow distanced from it. Like, I either have it or I don't. Like, it's something in my possession or it isn't, and it can come and go like that, without ever investigating what it is that I have or don't have, what its relationship is to the rest of the world, and how that dynamic changes. Like, that question never comes up. All we have is, I feel like I've got freedom. No, I don't think I've got freedom. No, I think I've got it right now. No, you know what, mate? I feel like I had some freedom last week, right? But like, and then the wife came around and told me I can't do that no more.
Is that the die voice?
Okay, I'm ready. All right. No, there's no TikTok for Monica's big man. I know you're coming Oro Peely Wally up there, but I'm going to have you doing your skate faster than a whippy gets a hard on, okay? What? Now, I'm going to get you down, but here is what I need you to do first, okay? Here, deep breathe. Okay, what? I just want you to take a deep breath. In, out. You all right, man? You all right?
It's a dive. Oh, dive. But yeah, so the issue is that in every one of these cases, what we have is a kind of like an underlying assumption about, like, a conception of ourselves is somehow distant from the whole thing. And in order to get over this, the way you figure this out is by not just investigating what freedom means in terms of its negative, so what we're free from, but also what freedom means in terms of its positive, which is to say what we're free for. And that's exactly what John Q was saying. That's exactly what John Q was doing. Like, he's taking a decision on the basis of, I know what I'm free for. I'm free for that my kid's life. That's what I'm free for. I'm an X myself for the purposes of my kid's life, because I'm free for that. That's what this is. That's what my body is for. It's for that. To do this for that. You see what I'm saying? Free for that. And that's the difference. And we kick this God knows how many seminars ago, but we talked about this with respect to Plato's cave allegory, right? Where I said in Plato's cave allegory, we're talking about a dude who's stuck in a cave and then makes his way out of the cave, blah, 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 blah. The issue is that upon exiting, right, the first thing is that my man's blinded by the light because he's never seen sunlight before. And then when his eyes begin to adjust, he starts to understand. And then upon understanding, the very next action is to go back and start rescuing everybody else. Seems intuitive. But that's the freedom 4 bit. That there's an intuitive ethics associated with your freedom. That's to say, with making a decision in the clear light of day. You see what I'm saying? When you're making a moral decision like the moral decision that John Q was making, there was no shade of doubt. There's like, I know what the job, but I'm doing this. It's in the clear light of day. I know 100% I'm gonna stake my life on this. This is what I'm doing. And this is me. This is what it is. Clear light of day. I know what I'm doing. You see what I'm saying? It's a different, and then it carries with it a moral responsibility.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but I feel like the Sufis would say that this is following the path of the soul. The soul is that thing that tells you, in Sufism at least, is the thing that tells you, without a shadow of a doubt, what is correct. What is the correct thing to do? We would call it maybe morals, values, whatever, but it's like you just know that this is it.
Here's what it is. So, together, I'm quoting, together these passages point toward a conception of philosophical work which remains guided by a certain understanding of freedom, not primarily as agency or independence, but as a kind of responsive openness to what is. To reach the free as an interpretive goal is obviously not to liberate yourself from the matters of the past, but to reach a point where one is able to encounter it. The ability to be able to confront all of the influencing forces, the past, the present, the future, God knows whatever else, to look them dead in the eye, understand their relationship to you and your relationship to them, and then make a decision on the basis of that understanding. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not confusion, it's in the cold light of day. It's what philosophically we call praxis. It's ethics. Ethical action. Like there's a relationship here which is a weird one. Think about it. Ethics can no more be proven than freedom can be. Like I can no more prove that I'm ethical than I can prove that I'm free. But if you ask me, I behave ethically. And if you ask somebody else, they're behaving according to their own ethics. But it's something that you have to do in the course of your doing it. Everybody knows this about the nature of ethics. It's not something established,
This is what I think is really dangerous about this idea of ethics or morals or whatever, is that no one has the same. Like, the thing is, most people you ask, when you ask the crazy Karen who refuses to wear a mask and is spreading this virus to people, if she's being ethical, she's going to be like, yeah, of course, because this is how she conceives of ethics. But this is what, and I think this is the problem that the left, we're talking about leftists, you know, not wanting to root their politics in any morals or ethics. This is the problem with it, because it's just like, well, how do you do that when everyone has a different conception of this? How do you come to a shared understanding of what is the correct action to take and how we should be in society? Because we have to live together. So we have to have something shared, right? And this, I think, is how communist dictatorships begin, because it's like this idea that like, well, everyone has to act a certain way according to certain politics, you know, and we're going to enforce this. But it's the same as the right wing. Like,
whereas
the right wing,
a good communist knows that you should just send them to re-education camps. Like online seminars once a week.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it's the same with the right wing, you know, like the right wing, like for them, it's the law though. Everyone has to, the law is legitimate, they believe, and everyone has to follow the law because we have to live together in a society. So how can, you know, in order for society to function, like it's both, they're both operating. It's like, sometimes I think the left and the right are functioning the same way, but just like with different ideas.
But you see, this is what I'm talking about dualistic or thinking about things in those opposed terms. What you're saying is very true, but it's because the left and the right aren't on a line. They're a circle, right? So when you go far enough around, eventually you just end up in the same place.
And I feel like that's what libertarians kind of are. Like,
you just gone so far around to that you've met in the middle, like you've ended up meeting at the opposite end of where you started, and you think it's different. But like you both started here, you go this way around, and you end up in the same place. Like, oh my God, we're both. You see, nothing
They're
happened.
the same in form,
Listen.
but not in content. Yes.
Great dictator, I have a question for you, and you have to make a decision because we've got about 60 seconds to make it. Are we returning for a part 2 in order to conclude our conversation here, or are we departing on your words at the moment, right now, henceforth?
Oh my God, I don't know. What are we doing? Do we have more to say about this? Is the conversation
I mean,
dead?
I feel like we owe it to the audience to say goodbye properly.
Okay, so let's come back. We'll come back for like 2 minutes and say bye.
Okay, so look at you. Go come back for 2 minutes. This is what you owe the audience. You owe the audience 2 minutes of your time. This is your life.
They got
this is
things
what it's like.
to do. So do I. I got to
Oh,
shop.
look at your benevolence. Let's see how the benevolence comes in. Now you make it feel if having nothing to do. Now you're going to make it feel like having nothing to do. You know, mad people right here got nothing to do. Y'all just sitting there staring at Instagram. Like I'm just saying.
Goodbye, everybody. I've got to go. Gotta leave you all behind and face the truth.
Hello.
What?
Welcome back to my show.
Welcome back to your show.
Has arrived.
The Great Dictator has arrived. All right, so
Uh-huh.
as far as, just to kind of like round it off, as far as the question, are we free? From a political standpoint, I agree with you. It's an issue of some debate, and it should be subject to debate. I feel like that's the nature of politics, right? So with respect to the question of are we free, politically speaking, no, it should be open to question, and we should be pursuing our freedom as much as humanly possible, politically speaking. But that's one thing. With respect to our concerns personally, though, like as human beings, let's say as a human being, regardless of my political conditions, wherever I might happen to be on planet Earth at whatever time in human history that I happen to be born, as a human being, my conviction of moral responsibility that I walk around with all day long, we are, at least as far as philosophically I'm concerned, and philosophically my work, what's up, my work is concerned, it's not so much that we are free as, it's not so much we have freedom as freedom has us. It's not so much that it's a matter of whether or not I have it at a time when I have it and who I am and what have you. It's that in order for you to think of yourself as somebody that can and cannot make your own decisions or can and cannot be morally responsible, there had to be a freedom given to you in the first place. That line of thought thinking wouldn't be given to you, wouldn't be available to you if there weren't something there in the first place that would permit you thinking of yourself as morally responsible, that would permit you thinking of yourself as free. Somewhere in your head, whether you're a prisoner or otherwise, like you could be a prisoner in a cell, or you could be on your way to work, or you could be in a seminar stuck listening to, some amazing gems being dropped by this good looking Arab dude with this amazing lineup. But I'm just saying you could be in that position.
You mean the dictator? But yeah.
The dictator, of course. I mean, of course. What I'm talking about. Yeah, of course. But yeah, you could be in that position. But what I'm saying is that regardless of your circumstances, you're always permanently aware of that ability to be able to act upon yourself, to give yourself a law, as it were, to determine for yourself to behave such, thus or thus. Whichever way you do it, it doesn't really make a difference. Whichever way you move, but you live and die on that. You stand on that. That's really all it comes down to. There's nothing else. And there's nothing else that you will reflect on in your final moments but those things. You live and die on that. There's nothing else going on. And your ability to be able to think of yourself in such a way is given to you before you ever try to entertain it. You consider yourself in that light. You think of yourself as ethically, morally responsible in some respect, before you ever wondered about whether or not you have freedom. You judged yourself from the first day you broke a plate and your mom got mad at you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, without going crazy deep into my book, available on all good Amazons.
Mm-hmm. Where is your book? I have it.
You got a physical copy?
I have copies of it.
You have copies? Yeah, I feel like I left mad copies.
I've been trying to get rid of them. It's not working. No one wants it.
I don't blame you. No one's buying. Hey, listen, if we're being honest, my university didn't want it either. I had to force it down their throats too.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, so I feel like it's important that while we contemplate whether or not we're free, while we contemplate the forces and the factors that influence our lives or that determine what we can and can't do, that we think of ourselves as always at least potentially in the position of a John Q, or somebody like that, which is to say, not that you always have to make a decision to save somebody's life or what have you, but you always have to think of yourself as making a decision that will determine your life. You never know which decision is your last one in any case. You never know when this is up. It's not something for you to decide. Life is short. Life is brief. Life is fleeting. Life is complicated, and it's full of like confusion and uncertainty. And the only times we tend to be absolutely sure, weirdly enough, some of the few times we tend to be absolutely sure about ourselves is when we make those decisions that we feel like we can stand on, or we make those decisions that we feel like that define our character. So to my mind, move accordingly in every decision the person makes. And the more, and I promise you, the more consciously, as it were, we make whatever decision that we make in the course of the day, from like how you pour your cup of tea to how you comb your hair to how you whatever it is that you're doing in the course of the day, the more deliberately, the more consciously that's a decision that you make, the more it's like a decision that I'm gonna live and die on, that defines and determines my character. The more right that decision is, the more everything starts to make sense.
Well, I would agree with you, but it just scares me because I live in a country of crazy people. And I know that what's morally correct for them, is like detrimental to everyone else. So.
Listen, I'm speaking from a particular position of like, social services luxury. Because even if our NHS is falling apart, we have one.
You have healthcare. Your projects are nicer than my apartment, than my private building that I live in. Yes, I still, and I've said this before, when I went to the UK, he took me to Peckham. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, Peckham, okay, here's the hood. No, Peckham is like a middle-class, nice little neighborhood, which I don't understand why you were all stabbing each other. What do you have to be mad about? He showed me the project, what are they called? Council houses?
Some of the council houses.
Can I have a council house, please? If someone gave me a council house, I would never be in a bad mood ever again.
To be fair, I feel like it's a thing that people don't take into consideration often enough, that like the conditions in the United Kingdom, as poor or as difficult as they are, particularly like in the areas that I was growing up in and what have you, like it's a little bit, and it is a little nicer now because gentrification and gone into a road, so they decided to spend a little money on it and raise the prices of the rent. Back then it was a little more run down, but we still don't take into consideration how much worse it is in the United States, and I don't think the United States takes into consideration how much better it is everywhere else. Like,
what do you mean? USA. Was
that a cough? Are you coughing? Hold up. Did you just cough after that? Or like, I'm just saying. Yeah, exactly. USA. Like that, I feel like you always like change your national anthem to kind of leave spaces for cough.
Well, we're gonna have to pretty soon. Look at what we're living in.
A lot of people are saying, Donald, you're the most amazing guy. You're brilliant, you're handsome, you're rich, you have everything going. The world is waiting for you to be president. So why are you hosting Saturday Night Live? Why? And the answer is, I have really nothing better to do.
And the land of COVID. But in any case, listen, the point is, I just wanted to take a second, like this is the final one on Instagram, right? So I did want to take a second to thank the audience who's been with us since seminar number 1. We are at seminar number 29. Everybody who's stuck with us from day 1, who's been with us throughout this whole journey so far that we've been on. I can't believe I just said journey, but everybody who's been with us throughout this whole process.
Sorry, it was boring until I got here, guys.
Sorry, it was not dictatorial until you got here. But I just wanted to, express my appreciation, my gratitude for everybody who's shared, everybody who's listened, everybody who's joined in, everybody who's sent in questions or who's asked or what have you. Please feel free to continue to keep doing that. We're compiling all of this. So anybody's got questions, anybody's got books that you feel like we should be talking about, subjects that you want us to explain and discuss, things that you feel like we should be discussing together, send all of that in. DM me, DM the Great Dictator. Just, start it off with Great Dictator because otherwise she'll just ignore it.
Throw in some compliments. You
got to throw in a compliment or two, otherwise, it just doesn't get read like that. It's just, you have to learn the language of the dictator. So if you're not like supplicating yourself, like I don't know if it counts. But yeah, so consider seppuku as a real possibility. She might instruct you that way. I don't know. It depends. It depends. I'm not speaking for you. I'm just suggesting. But the point is for real. Everybody keep staying in touch. Hit us up with the DMs and the comments and whatever else. Let us know what you liked and didn't like. Let us know if you feel like there's questions that we should touch on or we should deal with in the coming seminars, because there will be seminars coming. This is not over. Yeah, we step back to step up.
All right.
Go ahead.
So stop talking. So remember, guys, this is our last IG live episode. Next week we take a break, and then we come back the next Monday, 7 p.m. London, 2 p.m. New York, on YouTube Live. So that means you have to go to the Build on Tutors page, subscribe to the page, subscribe to getting what are those little things? Alerts or whatever, the little bell notifications, and then tune in. Yes, tune in. Not this Monday, not next Monday, the Monday after.
What's that date? Hold up, we should know that date. Do we not know that? That's the 26th. 26th. It's the 26th.
26th. So we will be back October 26th.
October 26th. What is that? Like that puts us how many days short of Halloween?
Like 5, 4.
Right. When is Halloween? 30th or 31st?
31st, the last day.
Ah, and it's be seminar 30. So we're kind of like, if it was seminar 31, that'd be spooky. Then we might have to cancel it because, like, you know, the jinn. But the point is,
they are real.
Every time you say jinn, I just think of an Asian battle rapper.
No. Keep playing around, and then okay. Keep playing around. Watch what happens when you try to sleep at night, and they come knocking.
What?
And you don't even know surahs from the Quran. God help you. At least I know Ayatul Kursi.
I know some battle lines, but I know some battle lines.
Whatever.
Everybody
not
from
gonna,
the 3
not gonna help you against the jinn.
I'm just saying, like, I just feel like this is the Asian battle rapper. But in any case, look, the point is, everybody, listen, we are moving over to YouTube Live. Forgive me. So, thank you for everybody who's joined us so far. Please keep up with us. As I said, hit up the DMs, get in touch, let us know what you feel like we should discuss in the next chapter, as it were. So once we get onto YouTube Live, we'll send up all the links, we'll post up all the reminders. God knows where else. We're still here, so still get in touch and what have you. But this is it for Instagram. Dr. E's open seminars. Thank you very much, Instagram. Appreciate your service. You weren't that great, but we appreciate it. But yeah, Dr. E's open seminars. We'll still be back for seminar number 30. Not next week, but a week after that. That's the 26th of October. So we'll see you on the 26th of October, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST. So we'll see you then. Dr. E, Lee Tusa, TBT. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Ph.D, philosopher extraordinaire. And you go over here, Tanzine, the great dictator, Ph.D. to be. I'm with you, fam. I'm with you. I'm keep it up with this. Keep it up with this. But in any case, thank you very much to everybody. Hey, Black Lives Matter, in case anybody's wondering about it. Corinne, we love you. Just in case we forgot to mention Corinne.
Love you, Corinne.
How do we not mention Corinne? Corinne's been here for like mad minutes. We always say, everybody just send your love to Corinne. If everybody hasn't done it yet, put up a heart for Corinne for 2 seconds and send her a message or something. But just send somebody a message. Just be nice to the Corinne in your life. You know what I'm saying? Just be nice to the Corinne in your life. If you ain't got a Corinne in your life, go get a Corinne and go be nice to her. Be nice to the Corinnes in your lives. So we love Corinne. Thank you, Corinne. Much respect, much appreciation for everything you've done so far. We love you, Corinne. And then, yeah, fam. Peace, health, blessings. Black Lives Matter. Mask up. Stay home. Stay safe. Do whatever you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Be nice to the people around you. Be compassionate. Be free, fam. Great dictator. Peace, health, and blessings.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys. See you in 2 weeks. Peace out.
Easy come, easy go. Will you let me go? Build a wall. No.